was taken before his time. He had so much more to accomplish. Oh my god. Oh, hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I know the feelings of loss are still hefty upon our shoulders. But we gotta persevere, you know? It's what T-Bone would have wanted. He would not want us here lamenting his death. He would want us to go out there and pick up trash under the freeway or something. I don't know. But I'm gonna do the best I can, alright? I said I was gonna make a 45-minute video dedicated to the greatest Marine that ever did live, Travis D. Boner, and God help me, I will. Go grab some snacks, ladies and gentlemen, we're doing this. Okay, so all hyperbole aside, I really want to say, and I really want to stress at the beginning of this, there's meaning behind T-Bone's death here. I mean, there is, okay? This was not something that Oda just did, like, oh, okay, you know, the Cross Guild is putting bounties on Marine heads, so I need to have some Marine die in order to showcase that this is actually happening, okay? And he just went down a list of characters, and he just arbitrarily selected T-Bone. You know, the idea that Oda selected T-Bone to die because he was, like, irrelevant to the story, or he was like, oh yeah, I remember that guy, I used him back at Water 7, Zoro one-shot him, oh, that guy was lame, yeah, he's not going to be doing anything else in the story, I'm just gonna wipe him out right now, and who cares, right? You gotta think about all the Vice Admiral characters that exist. I mean, it's a pretty big class in the Marines, okay? There's a lot of Vice Admirals, and Oda just kind of keeps adding more and more of them, like Kuro Uma was just, well, I don't think he was confirmed to be a Vice Admiral, he was the head of, like, the Marines Detective Agency or whatever, like, Internal Affairs, but he had a name, like a lot of the other, like, you know, Pink Rabbit, Brown Pig, and he was Kuro Uma, which is Black Horse, so I like to think he was also in the category of Vice Admirals. Oda adds new Vice Admirals all the time. In fact, we didn't even know T-Bone was a Vice Admiral. He was originally a captain. He was a proud captain of the Navy back during Water 7, and then after time skip, he was confirmed to be promoted to Rear Admiral, which is a pretty big promotion from captain to Rear Admiral in just 2 years, and then to Vice Admiral once more right before he died, okay? So I would not be surprised if when Oda established T-Bone's character back during Water 7, maybe he didn't know exactly how he was going to die, but Oda was like, all right, if there ever needs to be a sacrifice for the Marines, T-Bone's character is going to be that. Not because he is just a background character, nobody cares about him, because you got to think about it this way. If Oda wanted to go that road with it, he could have killed so many other Marines that were, like, barely in this story, okay? Like, Dalmatian exists. The dude that literally all we know about him is he's a Vice Admiral that has the Dalmatian zone. He could have, it'd be like, Vice Admiral Dalmatian slain by civilians to turn into the Cross Guild to get the bounty. Could have been Dalmatian, could have been Doberman. There's a lot of Marines named after dogs now that I think about it. Could have been Stainless. It could have been any of those dudes, okay? I highly doubt Oda has the time in this story to really focus on every single Vice Admiral in a major way. Like, we're gonna have a backstory for Dalmatian and for Stainless and Vice Admiral Cancer. Cancer could have died. He's basically just a like a low-grade diet smoker. Yeah, there's a guy there's Vice Admiral Smoker who smokes a bunch of cigars, and then there's a Vice Admiral Cancer that smokes a bunch of cigarettes. So yeah, it's pretty much just the same character, right? So Oda could have done that if he just wanted some random character who cares to die, all right? He selected T-Bone, and there's a reason why he selected T-Bone, okay? And I bet the way that Oda viewed this is like, hey, listen, longtime fans of One Piece and people that have been reading this story and actually, like, look at the characters, like, individually. You don't just look at a character like, oh yeah, this was a character that showed up in a couple of chapters and then he was defeated by the Straw Hats and then I'm just going to forget about them moving on. You know, I'm sure there's a lot of people that read One Piece because there's a lot of characters in One Piece, okay? So if you forgot who T-Bone was, I'm not going to be, like, angry. It's like, how dare you forget the majestic Captain T-Bone? It's just like, there's a lot of characters in this story, all right? There's a boatload, literally. It's about pirates, okay? So if you forgot about T-Bone, not a big deal. You're going to read the chapter and just be like, oh, T-Bone died, all right, whatever. But I think Oda was also kind of going with, like, you know, if you remember T-Bone, if you remember the kind of character he was, the kind of man that he was, if you remember his kind of personality, the way that Oda wrote him and, you know, conveyed his, like, sense of chivalry and altruism and kindness and everything, then this moment in the chapter 1082, when we just open the chapter with the death of T-Bone in the paper, that's gonna hit home, and that's gonna really, like, it's gonna feel like you understand kind of how it went without Oda having to explain how it went. All right, I saw a lot of comments that were talking about, like, oh, well, what if Captain T-Bone's not actually dead? I keep saying captain because he was originally introduced as a captain. He's vice admiral right now, posthumously vice admiral, but it's like, you know, what if he's not really dead? What if he just pretended to die, right? He pretended, or maybe he's laying low somewhere right now. And it's like, listen, if you know T-Bone's character, he's 100% dead right now, okay? Because T-Bone was this shining beacon amongst all Marines. I said in the review and during the eulogy that I gave, I actually gave him a damn eulogy. That's the weirdest. Just like all the characters in One Piece, I did not give a... Who else died recently? I didn't give a eulogy to Ashura Doji. I didn't give a eulogy to Izo, but I gave one to T-Bone. That's how it goes. But anyway, during my eulogy, I said, you know, he was something rarer than even the One Piece. T-Bone was a good person. All right, because he was no bones about it. Yo-ho-ho-ho! He was a genuine good person. All right, he did not join the Marines for his own personal gain or for, like, the health benefits or for money or for praise or for ego or anything like that. He joined the Marines to help people, to help his own men, to help the innocent civilians of the world, to uphold justice and protect the innocent, okay? And the way that I'm describing this, man, this sounds very chivalrous. That sounds like the virtues of the knights and paladins of old. And it wouldn't surprise you that T-Bone he used to be a knight. That was revealed. I don't remember if it was revealed in the story. I think it might have actually been revealed in the story that he was a former knight. If not, it was in one of the data books somewhere. But knighthood is certainly something that does exist in One Piece. The most famous knights, of course, are Duros, obviously, but also T-Bone is there as well. In the eulogy, I also said, as a little bit of a Easter egg for One Piece D&D, that T-Bone was originally from the Terrico Kingdom, which is a fictional kingdom that Rustage created in One Piece D&D. That's where Duros is from. And actually, you know what's weird? One Piece D&D takes place like 20-something years before the current story, and Duros is like 30 years old in that version. And so in the future, in like modern One Piece, Duros would be like in his 50s, and T-Bone was also like 53 when he died. So I like to think that Duros and T-Bone and Travis T-Boner were like, you know, they were training together in the Terrico Kingdom. He went off to be a Marine, and Duros went off and, you know, joined the Devil's Luck Pirates and everything, if you're a fan of that series, which has just recently ended. So go check it out on Rustage's second channel. It's a 45-minute video, guys. I have to fill it with something, okay? I don't know if I'll be able to keep it with, you know, just the T-Bone discussion for 45 minutes, but I will try. We're up to 9 right now, so we're moving along. Okay. So, let's see. Okay. So going back, though, to T-Bone's knighthood. Okay. So he was a knight, and so he embodied all of these virtues, and it would make sense that he would eventually join the Marines. Okay. Because on the surface, the way that the Marines are presented to the world is that they are the symbol of justice. They are the single beacon of justice and hope in law in this entire world. This world that's awash in the great pirate era, where pirates are going around murdering and pillaging and burning towns down. The Marines are the group that fight against the pirates. Now, we are all aware that there are Marines that are horrible people. In fact, we just saw a group of Marines not long ago that were attacking Whitebeard's hometown and basically holding an old grandma at gunpoint and threatening to kill her unless she provided Whitebeard's treasure, which they did not have. All right, like the village itself was Whitebeard's treasure. Okay, so those Marines that were doing that, Edward Weevil showed up and fought back there. Of course, we have Captain Nezumi that was at Arlong Park, that was basically in legions with Arlong, and he knew everything he was doing, and he was basically covering for him in the Marines and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, really bad Marines out there. And then, of course, you get to the idea of, like, the world government. If you think the Marines are corrupted, wait till I tell you about the world government and the Tenryubito and everything like that. And so, you get the impression that maybe at first T-Bone joined the Marines with the idea of, like, the Marines are justice. I shall wield my sword in the name of justice. And that's just how he did it. And that's really, how he worked. And you might think that, like, eventually, once a Marine gets to, like, a higher rank, like Captain, Commodore, into the Admiral class, maybe the veneer is beginning to wear down, the cracks are beginning to appear in the armor, where you're beginning to notice, Garp certainly did, how corrupt the world government really is. I would imagine when you start getting up higher and higher in the Marines, you're beginning to realize that, like, wait a second, the Marines are supposed to be the ideal, like, bastion of, like, not freedom, but justice and law in the world. And there are still a lot of islands that we do not protect, because they're not allied with the world government. I'm sure somebody like T-Bone would have abhorred that. He would have been like, why can we not protect these islands? I'm sure, in fact, the kingdom he was killed in was notable for being a very impoverished land. So I'm actually thinking that T-Bone, maybe during his off hours, or maybe he just didn't even care about the orders from above, he would go and help out the impoverished nations that could not pay the heavenly tribute, therefore were not part of the world government, therefore the Marines had no jurisdiction there. Like Wano, for instance. Akainu even said that we have no jurisdiction in Wano, we have no authority there, we cannot go there because they are not part of the world government. I imagine T-Bone would not care about this, okay? Especially as a vice admiral, he would be like, men, I've heard of this nation over there, this impoverished kingdom with people that are suffering. We shall go and help out in any way we can. He's like, but Vice Admiral T-Bone, we can't. They're not allied with the world government. You'll get in trouble. You'll be, like, discharged. You'll dishonorably discharged. I care not. As long as I can help the people of this land, of this world we live in, that is all I require. Remember my personal motto, men. Do 100 good deeds every day, Vice Admiral T-Bone. Yeah! And by the way, that was his personal motto. This dude had a motto. Do 100 good deeds every single day. Dude, you thought Saitama's regiment was difficult, okay? Seriously, right? 100 good deeds every day. You know what? Man, like, seriously, though, dude. Seriously. If you met, just in the world we live in right now, if you were to meet somebody whose personal dogma it was to just do, let's say, one good deed every day, like you met somebody and you're chatting with them at, like, the bus stop or something, and you're kind of drumming up a conversation, like, this guy's pretty cool, and you're talking to them for a bit, and they're like, yeah, my personal motto is I try to do at least one good deed every day. I think, like, if I was talking to somebody like that, I'd be like, you know what? Good for you, man. Holy crap. One good deed every day. You know what? I'm going to try to do that too. That's good on you, all right? You're just trying to make the world a little bit of a better place, okay? And that's just a person, if you meet, that would try actively to do one good deed every day. And it could be something insignificant. It could be, well, insignificant maybe to the world at large, but just like an old grandma is having trouble reaching something on top of a shelf in the grocery store. And you're like, hold on, grandma, I'll get the beans for you. It's like, oh, thank you, dearie, yes. It's just like, that's, hey, man, it's like you helped somebody out today, you know what I mean? Yeah, there you go. So T-Bone takes that to the next level. He's like, no, I will do 100 good deeds every day, sir. And you know what? I really think that he doesn't actually achieve 100 good deeds every day. What I think it is, he sets that number so high so he cannot possibly achieve it. And it's like every day he keeps trying harder and harder to reach the 100 good deeds. Like, T-Bone, you gotta understand, is the guy that is so dedicated to that lawful good nature that he probably sacrifices. I mean, look at the way he looks. He has a very kind of like sallow sort of complexion. He's missing teeth that he probably gave to some guy that needed teeth. He looks kind of like a zombie. In fact, somebody even asked him in an SBS, like, is Captain T-Bone a zombie? What kind of zombie would he be? And Oda's like, well, he would be a general zombie because, all the other zombies, like the soldier zombies, don't have weapons, and he wouldn't be a surprise zombie, so he would be a general zombie, right? But he's not a zombie, but he looks like that, probably because he gives of himself so much. T-Bone probably sleeps like 1 hour a day. Okay, he probably gets the most minimal amount of sleep. He probably doesn't really eat all that much. He's actually a vegan. So even more so, he's a vegan, which is ironic. That's kind of the joke for his name. His name is T-Bone, and so T-Bone is a type of steak, but he doesn't actually eat steak. He's a vegan, so he just eats vegetables. But even then, like, if one of his men, like T-Bone is the kind of guy that, in his regiment, if you were lucky enough to be in T-Bone's regiment in the Marines, right? Let's say they're at camp and they're about to, like, attack the enemy pirates or whatever, and there's like time for a meal before they get going. Like, men, you must all eat a hearty breakfast before we begin the battle. It is your duty. And so he would like personally patrol around. I mean, he would be a little doting, obviously, but he does it in a good-natured way. He'd be going around the camp and he would just be like, you young man, he would know the names of every single person in his regiment. You, Jeremy, why have you not eaten? He's like, well, I gave my food to somebody else who needed it more. Oh, Jeremy, your selflessness your charitable nature has touched my heart. Here, have my breakfast. It's like, but Captain, you need to eat it. And he's just like, no, I shall not. I shall surrender this carrot to you. Eat the carrot, Jeremy. Eat the carrot. Thank you so much, Captain T-Bone. All right, men, now we shall charge. Like, that's the kind of dude he is. That's the kind of dude T-Bone is, right? Okay, so he's a vegan, and he tries to do 100 good deeds every day. Maybe he only gets to like 75 good deeds in a day, and then he goes to bed, and he's like, perhaps tomorrow I will reach 100. And if he ever were to reach 100 good deeds, then he would just increase the limit. He would go to 200 good deeds a day. And then if he ever achieved that, he'd go to 500 good deeds a day, right? Like, that is the guy that he is, okay? So we see this exemplified during that arc, that little mini arc where they're aboard the sea train. One of his men got injured, not even grievously so. One of his men got like a light bruise on their arm, just like a little bruise, not a big deal. Maybe they were bleeding a little bit. It wasn't a big deal. They weren't like seriously maimed or anything like that. And T-Bone sees that and he starts ripping off parts of his own justice coat. And that, by the way, dude, if you need to talk about symbolism, holy crap, right? Like the justice coat, the thing that all Marine officers wear, something that I would imagine most Marine officers cherish as if it was their own life, to protect that coat that bears the kanji for justice on its back. All right? Something that not all Marines are able to wear. Only once you've distinguished yourself do you have the honor of donning the justice coat. And so, because T-Bone was a captain when he was first introduced, he had one, but he literally ripped it to pieces to make bandages for his men that were not even grievously wounded, and they were imploring him like, Captain T-Bone, you don't need to do that. It's not a big deal. It's just a scratch. He's like, no, sir, I shall not allow anyone in my regiment to be wounded without dressing their wounds. Here, take my bandage. It's like, and dude, symbolism out the ass here, really. Like, this is the mantle of justice that all Marine officers wear. And T-Bone is taking it and tearing parts off of it to give to his men. And anybody that's injured, not just his men, but any civilians or anything, right? As if in T-Bone's mind, the true embodiment of justice, the true embodiment of the kanji on that coat is to protect the innocent. In that case, if that Marine coat is better used as a bandage to treat the wounded than just being a flashy thing that you wear on your back, then T-Bone would rip that thing apart and hand out the cloth to anybody that would be useful, you know, in any way, okay? So once you understand that about his character, the fact that he died, the fact that that old man that we saw in the last chapter killed T-Bone in order to get his bounty so he could feed his family and his family could be provided for, it makes total sense. In the review, I said that T-Bone probably, maybe he tried to reason with the man a little bit, and then he was just like, kind of like, if my life is enough to feed your starving family, to provide for them, then my life is yours, sir. You know, and he passes it over, right? There have been people that have commented that, like, dude, because the old man was very clearly, like, he was very clearly nervous. He was like, I don't know if I belong here, what? I'm just an old man. Dude, T-Bone might not, he might have even went further than that. He might have not just laid down his life for that man. He might have, okay, what's the way to say this on YouTube without getting demonetized? He gave it up willingly. He gave it up himself. He gave it up himself. Okay, I think that probably would be okay. I think that's okay, yes. And even that, you might be sitting there like, oh my God, really? He did? And I'm just like, you know what? With T-Bone, it makes sense. And that's another thing. Like, if Oda would have picked, like, let's say Dalmatian or Stainless or somebody, we don't really know anything about those characters. Those characters were there in Marineford. We know their designs. We know their general personality, I guess, but not really. Like, and that's it. So if that would have happened, I would have had questions. I would have been like, Vice Admiral Dalmatian was killed. It's like, okay, how? How did a Marine Vice Admiral get attacked and murdered by a bunch of civilians? You know what I mean? But with T-Bone, it's the one Marine, I think probably the one soldier in the entire organization whose death makes logical sense. And it's like, I'm sure Oda was writing that, and it's like, hey, if you're a fan of the series, you get it, and, you know, you understand if you remember T-Bone. If not, it's not really a huge deal. It's something that kind of happened in the background as sort of an impetus, but if you know, kind of thing. And that's why I think he didn't pretend, he didn't fake his death. He didn't like, you know, oh, I will pretend to die and you could turn over my body and then I could be undercover in the Cross Guild. You know, no. With another Marine, I might have bought it. If it was Vice Admiral Stainless was killed, I'm like, okay, maybe he's undercover. But like with T-Bone, completely different kind of situation. With T-Bone, I could buy it, okay? So let's talk a little bit here about, let's talk about alignments. And I know, okay? Anybody that's familiar with alignments, that's familiar with D&D, it's like, okay, now we have to get to this part, all right? But we kind of do. So I'm going to show this chart. I'm sure most of you are probably familiar with this chart. This is the moral alignment chart that exists in D&D. Basically, when you create a character in D&D, you select one of these little boxes on which alignment your character best, embodies most of the time. Alignment is tricky because you're trying to distill every moral action that a person makes, or immoral action in some cases, and trying to distill that down into 2 words, like lawful good, lawful neutral, chaotic good, lawful evil, true neutral. That's difficult to do. I have a website here that explains the definition, but the thing is, with this, you've encountered, if you've been looking into this before, I've encountered plenty of different definitions and stuff, and most of the time, a lot of people cannot really decide on, it's just like, no, he wasn't this, he was this, it's like, whatever, but I'll just read this for you here as just an introductory to this. A good moral alignment means a character will lean towards altruism and personal sacrifice. Evil means harming and oppressing. A neutral person is one who wouldn't kill somebody for no reason, but wouldn't protect anybody for no reason either. On the downside, lawfulness can include closed-mindedness, reactionary adherence to tradition, judgmentalness, and lack of adaptability. Chaos, meanwhile, implies freedom, adaptability, and flexibility. On the downside, chaos can include recklessness, resentment towards legitimate authority, arbitrary actions, and irresponsibility. So, yeah, we're kind of looking at it like that there, where there's kind of upsides and downsides to both of these things, from the lawful angle and the chaotic angle. And then there's the good axis and the evil axis, which kind of represents, why are you doing these things? Are you doing these things for an overall reason for good, to make the world a slightly better place for like altruism, or are you doing these things out of evil, which could indicate anger or malice? Orochi, for example, I would put into either neutral evil or chaotic evil. Probably more chaotic evil for Orochi, because his ultimate goal was to like burn Wano to the ground and have nothing left, like total scorched earth, you know what I mean? So in that case, but you could look at neutral being the idea, like, was he doing this in the name of good, or was he doing this in the name of evil? He was kind of doing it more for himself. It was more of a personal vendetta for Orochi, which is why I'm kind of split on between neutral and chaotic. But I would probably just go chaotic evil with Orochi. So, and with that being said on this axis, the character, I mean, he might be the character in One Piece that embodies this the most, is T-Bone, Travis D. Boner, embodying lawful good, okay? Meaning that he is a member of the Marines. He's a proud member of the Marines. He's a knight, so he is very lawful. He adheres to authority, but he's doing so for the overall wellness and goodness, charitable nature and everything, kindness of humanity, to help out others, okay? In D&D, probably the class that embodies this the best is the Paladin class. Now, not to say anybody that's played any Paladins out there can back me up on this. And please, if you have played D&D for a while and you've, like, oh, teching, I've been playing a Paladin for 20 years, I could tell you all about Lawful Good. By the way, not every Paladin can be Lawful Good. I mean, you don't have to be whatever, there's recommendations for one or the other. You could be, you could be a Lawful Evil Paladin. I mean, there's Oathbreaker Paladins. I mean, there's ways to make it work. Plenty of ways with alignments in D&D. But if I was going to pick a single class in D&D that embodied lawful good, I would pick Paladin. Is that fair? I think that's fair. Now, a couple of things about this. Lawful good does not mean that you are a pacifist. It could be, conceivably, but not necessarily. It does not mean you are stupid. This is a term I use. It's lawful good. It's not lawful stupid. All right, and let me tell you a little bit of an explanation. This does tie back to T-Bone. We will get back to this. This all comes back to his character, right, while we're talking about this. And also, it's a 45-minute video. We're up to 27 minutes and 40 seconds. I have to cut some of this out, so it's even less than that. So we're moving along, though. We're moving along. I might be able to pull this off. I might be able to actually pull this off. 45-minute T-Bone video. Okay, so let's do a little scenario. Let's do a little D&D scenario here, okay? Let's say you have a group of characters, you have your party entering a town, and the town looks pretty ravaged, okay? And then you have a brittle old man that goes up to the party, and the paladin's there. And let's say your paladin is lawful good in this example, in this hypothetical, okay? He's like, oh, paladin, please help us. Bandits attacked our town. They murdered innocent women and children. They kidnapped a bunch of people from the town, and they brought them over to their camp. You need to save the survivors, please. If you are a lawful good paladin, there is no question what you would do here. You would console this man. You would help out the citizens as best as you could. You would provide, medical treatment if you could do that. Or you was like, oh, the party, we must help these people. That's the kind of thing there. And then there's no question what you would do next. These are bandits that are completely flaunting the law, that are doing whatever they please, that are horrible people, that have burned down this town, have murdered innocent civilians, men, women, children, elderly people, for God's sake. It's like, and they have kidnapped some people, and they're keeping them at their camp. It's like, you will go and you will save these people, or you will die trying. That is kind of your goal there, okay? So you're like, do not worry. I shall save these people, right? So this is where the difference goes. This is where the difference comes in between lawful good and lawful stupid. All right. You approach the bandit camp. All right. And let's say there's a bunch of people hanging outside the bandit camp. They're guarding the place. You know, you look inside. There's a decent amount of tents and kind of fortifications up. And you can, like, okay, we don't know where the people are. We don't know where the hostages are, but they're somewhere in the camp, right? Lawful good does not mean that you're just not going to kill a single soul. Like, we shall take this camp without a single drop of blood. I mean, if you want to run a character like that, sure, go ahead. You might run into a lot of problems. It doesn't mean you're going to walk right up to the bandit camp and right up to the guards and be like, "Oi, what are you doing here?" And be like, "Men, if you have even a decent bone in your body, you will throw down your arms in the name of the law, in the name of every good soul on this planet. You will surrender. You will give up your evil deeds. You will turn yourselves in. You will pay your debt to society, and you will become law-abiding citizens. And you will release these prisoners so they can go back home to their families that miss them so dearly. It is your duty as men to do this." Kill him! You know, like, what do you think's gonna happen if you do that? They probably start stabbing you before you even finish the damn sentence, okay? That's lawful stupid. Like, I will go and I will reason with the bandits that have just burned down a town and murdered 17 people and kidnapped 30 more and are, like, you know, holed up in this camp, you know, over 50 strong. I will tell them that it's not too late to save their souls. I mean, that's one of those, you know what? That's one of those situations in D&D where it's like, you know, like, all right, roll persuasion. You roll persuasion, you get a 20. You automatically just walk into the bandit camp and everyone worships you. Like, oh my god, you're the savior we've been looking for. I mean, like, there's a way you could do it like that, and then there's a way of just like, now, even if you roll a 20, it's just like, no, you're not going to persuade every single person in this bandit camp to lay down their arms and just, like, give up their evil ways. You know, it's not that simple, okay, right? If you are lawful good and you're genuine here, you know, these people have committed horrible atrocities. These people, these bandits, have murdered individuals. They've, you know, killed people and stuff, like innocents. And it's like, hey, I'm here to rescue these hostages. People are going to be coming at me with spears and shit and trying to kill me, you know. You know, there's a reason paladins have swords. You know, there's a reason, okay? It does not mean that, like, I shall not shed a single... The sword is symbolic of me not killing a single... No. You know, if it's in the name of justice, if it's in the name of the law and chivalry and honor and all that stuff and, you know, saving the innocent, then you would slice down as many bandits as the bandits come after you to try to stop you, to save the hostages. You would cut them down. You would fight, okay? So, here's where the lawful good angle comes from, okay? So, then, let's say you and your party fight through this bandit camp, and it's a rout, you know, like, you wipe out, like, a bunch of bandits come and attack you, you cut them down, you finally find the room with the hostages, you free the hostages, and a lot of the bandits realize, like, okay, we are way outclassed here, you know, there's no way we're going to be able to beat these guys, you know, they have magic, and they're beating us all down, and, like, the bandit captain comes out, and he's just like, I'm the captain, and just, like, you cut the captain down, and it's like, oh, you know what I mean, and it's like, and that's it. You know, it's like, okay, we're done. And so the bandits start fleeing. Now, here's the difference. If you're truly a lawful good character, you would not attack a fleeing enemy. Okay? If the bandits have decided that we're done here and they start to flee, you would not take out a bow and shoot a fleeing enemy in the back. Okay? That's dishonorable. It just is. Also, if a bandit were to surrender to you, so if, like, one of the bandits is just like, okay, mate, okay, shit, I'm sorry. You know, I was like, didn't mean to do it. All right, I'll turn myself in, whatever. I'll turn myself in. And it's like, I just don't want to die. You know what I mean? And then the lawful good paladin would be like, you shall pay for your crimes. We will take you back to the town and you will be held trial and a court will decide your fate and, you know, whatever, you know, and you know, maybe the lawful good paladin might even speak for the bandits. Like, he's like, this man has committed horrible crimes, but he has repented his ways. perhaps you could find mercy on him, and perhaps he could change his ways someday. But if the town still decides, like, no, he killed, no. And he's like, oh, well, I guess that is the way that law goes. Now you could, listen. You could find a lot of problems in that whole scenario. You could be like, okay, well, that doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. He's a bandit. He murdered people. He's going to murder more people. Shoot him in the back. It's fine. It's just like, hey, man, look, that's just lawful good for you, okay? And with that being said, allow me to now transfer this over to this little line of dialogue here. So, chivalry. Chivalry. The Code of Chivalry. So, let's see here. Where did I want to fit all this stuff in here? Okay, so the idea of a paladin embodying lawful good, like, where does that idea even really come from? You know what I mean? I did a little bit of research into this, and it actually tied back to something that also connects back to One Piece. Everything connects back to One Piece. Oda's been writing this story for over a quarter of a century. He's incorporated pretty much every aspect of human fiction into this story in one way or another. Okay, so the Song of Roland. If you're French, you probably know what that is. If you don't, allow me to explain. The Song of Roland is an epic poem that is the oldest surviving work of French literature, I believe, period. Dated to around 778 AD. And it kind of begins the story of, like, the paladin, and takes place. It was written during the time of Charlemagne, our pal Charlemagne, who would start the foundations for the Holy Roman Empire. He didn't start it himself. Basically what happened with that, in case, a little bit of historical fact for you, just to fill time because I have to. Actually, you know what? We're at 36 minutes in. So, okay. Anyway, really quick. Charlemagne, the Pope at the time, I believe it was Pope Leo III, basically was like, Charlemagne, you will be the new Western Roman Emperor. And keep in mind, the Roman Empire, the Western Roman Empire, had collapsed, like, this would have been 770. This was like in the late 770s. So this was like 300 years prior to this. Like in the late 400s is when the Western Roman Empire, 476 is when Western Rome was sacked by the barbarians, and that's when it fell. And then the Eastern Roman Empire became the Byzantine Empire. That continued on, but the Western Roman Empire had fallen, okay? So a couple hundred years later, like 300 years later, Pope Leo was like, oh, Charlemagne, you will be the next Roman Emperor. And this is a title that had not been given for like 3 centuries. So he was like, oh, I'm the new Roman Emperor. Okay, cool. Now he started to establish that empire, but then he died, like everybody does, and eventually it wasn't like until like 150 years later, like around the 960s, is when Otto the First became the one that actually began the Holy Roman Empire, okay, in what is now Germany. Okay, so there you go. There's a little historical fact for you. But, I bring this up because the Song of Roland is kind of the precursor to a lot of this chivalry stuff, and which would be adopted later into the Middle Ages, knighthood and everything. I think we think of like the Middle Ages, like the 1300s, 1400s, and stuff like that. Knights riding around in armor with swords, and it's like, we fight for chivalry and virtue and that kind of shit, right? It's like, oh, what's good in the world, The Song of Roland, ironically enough, is also something that ties back into Cavendish's story in One Piece. Cavendish's sword is named Durandal, which is Roland's sword in the Song of Roland. Roland was like, I don't know if he was the first paladin, but he was like a knight, holy paladin of Charlemagne. He was like Charlemagne's right-hand man, was this Roland dude, okay? So there you go. So I printed this out. This is just like, it's just a quick little fancy little Code of Chivalry kind of document here. I'm not going to read all of this, but just to kind of read this off, and let's see how it really embodies knighthood and chivalry and T-Bone's character, okay? Nobility of service, death before dishonor, respect all worthy people, honor all those above your station, command obedience through respect. That's a big one, command obedience. You don't just order people around like, hey, listen to what I say because I'm your commanding officer. That's what, like, Captain Morgan did way back at Shellstown. That's how Captain Morgan ruled, like with an iron fist, or like, well, with an iron axe fist. But you know what I mean. He's just like, listen to me or else I'll kill you. That's basically what he did. T-Bone, Travis, was definitely somebody that led through example and led through respect. His men respected him, so they obeyed him. It was like, we're okay as long as Captain T-Bone is around. You know what I mean? Protect the innocent, punish the guilty, courtesy to all the ladies. Battle is the test of knighthood. Combat is glory. Defend your charge unto death. War is the flowering of chivalry. Death to all those who oppose the cause. See, this is where you start getting into things where it's just like, this is getting a little extreme here. Well, also keep in mind a lot of this stuff was being written when like the Crusades were going on. So yeah, like Crusades and the Reconquista. The Reconquista was around the 1200s, so yeah, right around there. Like you can kind of see where a lot of this stuff is coming from now. Arts are the food of the chivalrous. Anger blinds, a cool head wins the day. Now, once again, this was just something I found online, like Google Images, like Code of Chivalry. I think this is actually supposed to be like a fancy little poster that you can hang on the wall of like your man cave or whatever. So some of this stuff might not even really be like historical, more of just like it sounds cool. You know, like the scene in Game of Thrones when Jaime knights Brienne and he's just like, in the name of the Father, I charge you to be just. In the name of the Mother, I charge you to be kind. You know, that kind of stuff. You know, it sounds really cool, right? Okay, that's knighthood, really. Okay, so, to end us out, because we're now like, yeah, we're getting there. To end us out, to say this, and I mentioned this in the review, but this really hits big when you think about the idea of all the stuff that T-Bone embodied as a good person, and he's dead now. Okay. The idea that he was kind of the single moral compass of the Marines. Like, if you were going to pick a Marine that was truly dedicated to the cause, that truly wanted to help all the people of the world, regardless of what their allegiance to the world government was, regardless of how much money they had, regardless of any of that stuff, it was Vice Admiral T-Bone, damn it, okay? There's other good Marines, don't get me wrong. Kobe is a good Marine. Garp is a good Marine. He's just a little bit more chaotic. I would say chaotic good for Garp, by the way. You know, definitely good Marines are out there. But the person that embodied it the most was T-Bone. And he's dead now. Okay, so in a way, you could look at it like Vice Admiral T-Bone was the moral compass of this organization, and he's gone now, meaning that that organization has now, it's not going to begin to crumble. But as Sengoku even said to Osuru in the last chapter, like, it's not really all that bad right now. But if Marines keep dying, especially since T-Bone was so loved by the civilians and the Marines alike, him dying might be he might have been the keystone that got pulled out of the slot. And now all the other bricks are beginning to fall down. Okay? Like, that might be the impetus for the collapse of the Marines or the collapse of the world government and the reform that Dragon will bring through his revolution, okay? Also, to kind of leave you with this, all right? How to explain this in the best way? It's a real lesson, I guess. I'm trying to figure out a best way for me to describe this, the way that Oda is conveying it. Sometimes Oda's writing, I have a hard time conveying exactly the message that like I feel getting into words. You know, I think a lot of people feel that, especially when you're reading a really good book, not just a manga, but like have you ever been reading like a really good book and you want to talk about it, but you just don't know how to convey the thoughts, you know, into words to actually speak? As somebody that comments on manga for a living, I encounter this issue a lot. Like for example, I'm reading Berserk right now. I'm just on volume I'm getting the deluxe editions. I'm on volume 10 of the deluxe editions. So like around chapter, I'm in the Falconia arc, and I'm gonna do a big live stream at the end of when I'm finished reading Berserk to talk about it, and I don't even know how to, like, I think I need to do it as a live stream so people can ask me direct questions about the series, like, what did you think of this? What did you think of Griffith's character? What did you think of Guts' character? Because then I can maybe, like, do, like, a question and answer panel, because I don't know if I'd be able just to sit down and convey my thoughts in a direct way with that. That's, Berserk is a lot to take in. But anyway, I'm still reading that. But anyway, getting back to this, to try to explain this. Do you think somebody that embodies all aspects of goodness and kindness and is truly a lawful good person will have a happy ending in this world? That is the way I'm trying to convey this. And I mean this in our world, and I mean this in the One Piece world. somebody that is genuinely all about altruism and humanitarianism, do you think that person will be able to succeed with their goals and have a happy ending where they are satisfied, whether it be in the One Piece world or in our world? Because in our world, I gotta tell you, it would be hard. It would be hard when you have somebody that like genuinely wants to help the people of the world, but there's just so many people that are in states of power that are just like, yeah, we're in it for the money. Yeah, we're in it for the power. Yeah, we're in it for the ego. And it's like the person that is genuinely good might end up getting drowned out or maybe even like eliminated. You know what I mean? And in the One Piece world, we have to deal with that as well, where Oda might be trying to send the message of like, T-Bone was the nicest, kindest, most genuine person, the one that was the most chivalrous and full of virtue in the entire One Piece world, at least in the whole Navy, in the whole Marines, it was T-Bone. But you know what? That doesn't mean he's going to survive. That means that his story is going to end. It doesn't mean he's going to end. He's going to be the one to see the world awash in kindness and hope and empathy, and we all love each other, and we all sing a kumbaya together, and there's no more like the fishmen. I'm sure he, like the plight of the fishmen and the merfolk, I'm sure he empathized with that. I'm sure he disagreed with the way the Tenryubito did things. You could look at it then like, well, why was he still a member of the Marines? Well, you could look at it like with anything. Like the reason he was still a member of the Marines was because he can't do anything if he doesn't have a status. Maybe he was thinking someday, like imagine if T-Bone ever became Fleet Admiral someday. It can't happen now, but if T-Bone ever managed to achieve the rank of Admiral and then eventually Fleet Admiral and then maybe even eventually Commander-in-Chief, like if T-Bone ever achieved status, what could he have done with that? Could he have changed things? Could he have made things different? Maybe he could have challenged the Tenryubito then. Maybe, just maybe the world might have been a better place. But it's sort of like, oh, you know what? I just thought I was having this crisis to try to convey my thoughts in a concise way, and I just realized an old saying, like an old adage, that I think sums it up perfectly. And you know, now that we're over 45 minutes now, I think we're gonna be good. I have to cut some of this out, but I think we're good. So I'm just gonna say it now. As the end of the video, at the end of all of this, Travis T. Boner, nice guys finish last.